history repeating? The Gilded Age and Your Future, 2025. Is history repeating? The Gilded Age and Your Future, 2025.
All right, yeah, so I did repeat that a few times. I thought that was funny. But anyway, maybe it's just nerd funny. Regardless, my name is Cassandra Williamson, and I am live right now today. This is Friday, and the weekend is almost here, and we are excited for the weekend. It's supposed to start clearing up around here. We've been rained on and everything else. It's supposed to be nice and warm next week. I don't know about tomorrow, though. But anyway, I think the tail end of the rain is supposed to leave. So again, this is Cassandra Williamson with The Path Forward. And today I want to take on the 5. And I'm going to start calling them the fake 5 until I get somebody to actually respond to me. You hear that, Jesse and Greg? Yeah, you too. I get a kick out of watching them. It's really funny, and it's kind of scary, too, that there are actually people who think like this and believe this. But, you know, they're entitled to their beliefs. This is America, and they're Americans, and they're entitled to their beliefs. But the thing that they're not entitled to do is to try to impose that on the rest of us. However, they're in a position to do so. So I watched Greg just go rant bonkers this afternoon when the 5 started. And oh my goodness, you can only take so much. It's like watching Mark Levin. He goes from like this. He goes from mild-mannered conversation to yelling and screaming at you. Well, Greg kind of went off the deep end. And over the past number of months, almost a year or so, really, or more, probably a year and a half, that I've been watching these people on the 5. And I'm going to tell you, I haven't seen a single show that is as fake as that one. It's crazy what's going on there. I mean, I tell you what, you've got Jesse Waters, who says that he knows what it means to be masculine and manly. So don't you dare cross your legs. You have to keep them wide open. You know, when you sit there looking in the middle seat on the 5, he keeps his legs wide open as if he wants you to notice that he's got something down there. And by the way, I don't notice anything. I don't know what's there, but hey, look. If you got to have that much room for your legs, it's fake, it's crap, especially whenever you go around telling people men don't drink out of straws and they don't cross their legs, and the type of shirt you wear is important too, and you got to be dressed up to be professional. Well, what you're doing, Jesse, is you're falling right in line with the social Darwinism of the Trump administration. And Greg is doing the same thing. He's a big apologist. I'm going to start calling them the Trump apologists on that show. They are the Trump apologists. You know what I mean by that and where that name came from? Well, after the Civil War, see, there were all these apologists who came around and they were apologizing, saying that no, you know, what they were saying was the war wasn't about slavery. And when in fact it was about slavery, period. We know that. And when somebody says, no, it wasn't, it was about this and this and this. And that's what they're doing with Trump today, too. They're the Trump apologists, knowing darn well that the crap he has been saying is bullshit, to put it bluntly. But that's the way it works with these people. They have to keep their nose really brown, shades of dark brown, because they've got their heads stuck so far up the Trump administration's behind that all they can see and smell are the crap that comes out. Okay. And that's where they are. But, you know, Jesse thinks that he is the man's man. He has the right to tell people how to be a man and what to do to be that way. So, Jesse, I get so, look, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. And I'm in the hills of Eastern Kentucky right now. I'm up in a holler of all things. And there's some stuff that I agree with on what Trump is doing, but there's a lot of it that I don't. And most of the stuff that I don't agree with him on has to do with the social things. And I like what on the five. On the five, it seems like nearly every day there's something said about trans people. And I have, for the life of me, can't figure out why you're so caught up on wanting to go after trans people. What is it with you? Is that why you keep your legs spread open so that everybody can tell that you're not trans, maybe? Or you are fighting it or something? I don't know what it is, but you've stepped over the edge. Phew. And the hypocrisy that comes out of Greg's mouth every now and then. Greg has some good points sometimes, every now and then. But for the most part, it's hypocrisy. Every time you turn around, it's something that is just goofball crazy. And it seems as if as long as it aligns with what the Trump administration wants them to say, that's what they say, and they'll bend over backwards to figure out a way to make it work and convince you that this is what it actually meant when we heard what they said. We know that Trump wants to defund academia across the country, not just Harvard, not just Columbia, not just the elite colleges and universities. He wants to defund them all, especially if they have minorities in attendance there, and especially if they're coming from some foreign country, as he calls them, from the vermin, and his term, his word. That's where we are with this. But it goes beyond that, see. They want to stop and stymie everything that has to do with DE&I and diversity and equity and inclusion and all of that. Fine. Some things go too far, just like what you're doing right now. And you know what is the ideological capture of the right of these things, of the federal government, of our institutions of learning, of higher learning? They're doing the exact thing they were complaining about to start out with. They were saying all these years, academia has been taken over by the liberals. And now they're going around telling you, no, we're trying to make the colleges now so that they can have viewpoint diversity. And I'm doing that by telling them that they can't use these words, can't do this kind of research, can't do that kind of stuff unless it's vetted and approved by us first. And it's ideological capture on them. We're just swapping one for the other. That's all this is. They don't want viewpoint diversity. They want their viewpoint. And the left does it too, and the right does it, and all these things. Everybody does it. That's just the game that's played and has been played since Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson argued with each other anonymously in the papers that they controlled back in the 1790s. Yeah, that's where it starts. Washington hated it. So we come by it honestly. Yeah, I get that. I understand it. But here's the big thing. I keep hearing everyone talking about wanting to push for trade skills, putting money where the trade skills are being taught. Electricians and plumbers and welders and auto mechanics and all this kind of stuff. But you know something? AI and robotics is going to take a lot of that stuff. Unless you have somebody trained in AI and robotics, then they aren't going to be able to have one of those jobs. I'd say give it 5 years at the most. At the very most, because things are advancing so quickly in AI and robotics right now. So all of this push for that puts it back on this thinking from President Trump, who has such a big for the 1880s and the Gilded Age and the robber barons and all those people, the leaders who owned all industry and all manufacturing and all everything. Those from the 1880s through 1913, that's what he loves. He loves that. He loves that it's called the Gilded Age. He loves that, that all those people who controlled it, all they had people just lined up to do all the trade work for them, and they were giving them pennies to do it. And that's what we're seeing here today. And I talked about this some today on it was around 2:00 Eastern time today for the midday muster. But that's social Darwinism. That's what he believes, that he is entitled to control all of that and that everyone should be working for him. He says it's for the country, but that's not what it's about. There's a sense of entitlement that says hey, this is mine and I've proven myself, and you all ought to just get in line and go out there and do some welding for me. I was trained, well, actually, I was introduced to welding when I was probably about 6 years old by my dad. I've used it and lived on it. I've made a living at it sometimes whenever I was in construction, when I did own construction businesses and things like that, putting up metal buildings and everything, or working in or supporting temporary services in the mining industry, stuff like that. I mean, I've been involved in these things. I know what these trades are. I've put up construction projects of my own and brought in all the trades to do it, and I'm so glad that they were there. Absolutely. Very glad to have them on board. But what we're seeing now is a restoration of what in the 1880s and 1913 period of time was called social Darwinism. Only the fittest shall survive. That's what that means. But in the context of the 1880s, in that period of time, the Gilded Age, it meant those who have the money, they control it all and they are entitled to it. And you have to work for them at whatever wage, at whatever cost to your life and health. Doesn't matter, because you're helping them, the wise ones, maintain their power and control. That's the level of control that they had in the 1880s, where they could do them. I'm talking about Carnegie and Rockefeller and all of these people from back that period of time. Vanderbilts. They had a lot of power and a lot of money, and they were the robber barons. They were called robber barons for a reason, because they were taking from everybody else in the country and the world, really, and then lining their own pockets with it. And then whenever they started to die off or retire or get out of this, they got into philanthropy and started giving it away. Carnegie built libraries all across the country. He would be appalled today, by the way, at what's happening with the educational systems in this country. But you see, now, that level of social Darwinism meant that everything in the country was designed to work in support of them. But today we have a slightly different shade of that. And this is what the five has been just going around in circles trying to justify, much like Jefferson Davis did, trying to justify the darn Civil War, and all the apologists who wrote many of the books after the Civil War, trying to cover up the fact that it was all about slavery, and really was. Now, I'm going to just do a little sidetrack here real fast. If you think it wasn't about this slavery, I've got news for you. It was. And you know how I know? Have you ever read the Constitution of the South, of the Confederacy? It's just like the U.S. Constitution, with 2 or 3 major changes, big changes. One is the U.S. Constitution is not numbered. The Confederate Constitution was numbered by line. It had line numbers, line items, now all the way down for all of it. The second thing it did was it said that the institution of slavery shall not be abridged or in any way regulated in the South, that the institution of slavery was protected, that no laws could ever be written about it or designed to regulate it in any way. That was the Constitution of the Confederacy, folks, which you don't hear much about from all those people who are saying it was just heritage, or it wasn't about slavery. Yes, it was about slavery. Anyway, that the apologists are trying to do the same kind of whitewashing of Trump and all the policies that he's doing today. That's Greg Gutfeld and Jesse Waters and the others on the five, the fake five, except for Jessica Tarlov, who I don't even know why she's on there, because all they do is give her a bad time. They give her a hard time every time she says something. The others just pile on. They want it to look like they've got some sense of balance and fairness and balance, fair and balanced that Fox News claims that they are. They are not. They are Trump apologists through and through. Through and through. There's nothing fair or balanced about any of their coverage. Period. Nothing at all. But yet they want you to believe that it is, and that they entertain other ideas. The sign and the signs, or the ability to entertain other ideas, other viewpoints, is difficult to do for most people, because you've raised up all of your ego gets in the way. Your personality gets in the way. You can't see someone else's view if all you can think about is what it is you want to say next. It requires you to use your ears. And we're not seeing any of that on the 5. We're not seeing any of that on Laura Ingraham. We're not seeing any of that on the shows that take place throughout the day, or Jesse Waters' show late at night on Fox. No, it's ideological purity test. If it doesn't align with what Trump wants, and Trump, and I've said it before, Trump fits right into this mold of social Darwinism. I don't think he knows what the word is. Probably has never even heard it. He just likes the idea of the Gilded Age. How do you know? Well, look in the Oval Office. What do you see? You're going to say paintings, little statues and statuettes and stuff like that. Well, they're all gold too, aren't they? Everything's gold. Gold, 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 gold. What does he have in his tower there in Manhattan? A golden toilet. Jeez. And what did the Qataris do? They know how to manipulate this man. That plane that they want to give to him or to the Defense Department was the royal family's plane. Yes, it's been sitting around on the airstrip for a number of years, 5 years or something like that, and tested ever so often, but it was still the royal family's plane. He wants it because it was the royal family's plane. It makes him feel like a king again. Well, a king, period. I mean, that's the stuff that drives him. This is social Darwinism idea, or the method of thinking, way of thinking that says, look, I'm entitled to this. I've been successful at all of this, which is debatable. But he's been successful at all of this, all these years. He's got all of this stuff and money to prove it. And the rest of us are just piss ants compared to that. And, we don't need to buy extra dolls for our kids. If you got $30, you got too many, right? I mean, come on, everybody just needs like 4. I mean, that's enough, right? And we don't need an extra golden toilet. No. Let me back up. He needs an extra golden toilet. I mean, the Qataris gave him one. This is the stuff that we're dealing with. It's the level of hypocrisy and willingness to just jump off the deep end and follow everything that Trump says and then go for it. There are some things I agree with what he has done, by the way. Yes, I do think the tariffs needed to be leveled across the world because for 75 years, we have been the ones sustaining the industry and the industrial growth within all these other countries whenever they imposed tariffs on our stuff so that they could rebuild after the war. That's the reason why those were there. However, the utility and the usefulness has expired. Those need to go away. Those onerous tariffs from other countries, they do need to be negotiated away. There needs to be a leveling of the playing field in regard, because there aren't too many places on the planet that, aren't already industrially secure or have manufacturing bases that can do these things for themselves. 75 years is a long time to be doing that, and they got it. That's one thing I agree with him on. Another thing I agree with him on is the support for Musk in terms of, getting rid of some of the inefficiencies in government. Now, it's not nearly as inefficient as you would think. It's designed to be a little bit inefficient. You don't want things to happen quickly and fast and step out the door and make this decision and go over here and do that one. You want there to be time to actually think through things a little bit and balance around different ideas and listen to viewpoints, which they want them to all go away. But I happen to agree with Trump and Musk on building technologies that can take us into space, to diversify the living environment of humanity so that we're on Mars and the moon and we can get to any other thing. We need that. And why do I say we need that? Because not just to protect the future of humanity, but also to drive innovation. Because with all of these new pushes to learn things, to pursue things, to go after new ideas, it causes industry to push and grow and change and adapt to that environment and advance all of humanity in the process of doing so. That's the stuff that gives us new knowledge and new experiences. But then you have the opposite side of that, which I disagree with wholeheartedly. where you're stripping away educational incentives at our institutions of higher learning. You're going after all of that. That's wrong. That's the thing that makes us the best, is that we do have the ability, or did, to actually pursue research and study and knowledge in all kinds of fields, whether I agree with them logically or not. You should be able to entertain new ideas, new ways of thinking, something that doesn't necessarily follow what you were taught when you were a kid. Thomas Jefferson kind of said it really bluntly once in a letter that he wrote to Samuel Kercheval in 1816. In this letter, he asked this question pointedly, who would we be? Now, this is me paraphrasing it somewhat, but he said this in this letter in 1816 to Samuel Kercheval. I think it was July the 12th or something. But he said this to Samuel Kercheval, and he said, who would we be if we were forcing our kids to wear, or forcing adults to wear the coats of their youth? You know, when you're like 5 or 6 years old and you had this coat on and it fit real well. But as you grow up and mature, learn new things, and the world changes and you change and things happen, there's no way you can wear that coat from your youth. It's gone. If the bugs haven't eaten it up, it certainly does not fit you anymore. And to try to take this whole country backwards and put them all back into the 1950s coats that we wore, or the 1930s coats that we wore, or the 1880s coats that we wore, is not going to work. But the big difference that we're seeing right now with this social Darwinism and these people who think that they're entitled to things, the entitlement level, the oligarchs up here at the top, and this big field of people, the billionaires, millionaire class of people who think that the world owes them everything because, they've proven themselves, they have everything. And that the rest of us, since we don't, obviously, since, we're not. That's what we're thinking of. But here's the thing, though. Here's the difference between 1880s and today. Back in the 1880s, it was the oligarchs who controlled everything in the nation at that big high level. They controlled it all. They wrote the rules. They wrote the laws. They hired the people. They paid them pennies. But today, what we have is another level above that. Another level above the billionaire class and the ruling class that's taking our country backward in leaps and bounds. This is the religious right, the religious nationalist. And notice I deliberately chose not to use the word Christian nationalist, even though that's what it is. But there are also Muslim nationalists. There are also Hindu nationalists and nationalism. There's Sikh nationalism. All these religions have that characteristic in common. They want to create their own identities, their own places, their own countries, essentially, and their own way of thinking, and control it. But today in America, this religious nationalism is called Christian nationalism. Pete Hegseth is a part of it. Don't believe it? He had his pastor, who is an avowed Christian nationalist, come in and give the first prayer for the monthly prayer service he's going to have at the VA. At the Department of Defense. Yeah. Craziness. That pastor is actually an acolyte of another person out of the Midwest. I believe it's Doug Wilson or something Wilson, who is an even far more stringent Christian nationalist. Now, look, here's the thing with Christian nationalism. Jesus would be appalled. Really. Really, all you have to do, if you believe in Jesus, the only thing you have to do is go in there and read the Beatitudes, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Read that period of time. And I know that these stories were written 30 to 60 years after the fact. And I know all of that. I understand. It's written by man also. Believe it or not, that's who wrote it. But the good that Jesus was doing is not coming out of Christian nationalism today. Jesus wouldn't recognize them. He'd be the one that was sitting in the back, having this homeless person come up to the door and going, hey, can I come in just a minute? I need to come in and sit down and get a sip of water or something. And can you give me some food? And the church elders up on the front row and up there behind the preacher are going, get that person out of here. Get that person out of here. We don't want to be seen with those kind of people. And that's what Greg and Jesse Waters are doing. They're the bro people, okay? Jesse up there saying this is what a real man looks like. But in fact, Jesus would walk into their midst as a homeless person and they'd kick him out. Muhammad would walk into them telling them about the Quran and the stuff that they wrote after that and their belief system, and they would be kicked out. There's no room for those people in this Christian nationalism. This is not Christian at all. It's self-serving power grab. This is social Darwinism. In this country, those people believe that they have a right to control everything else. It's called theocratic fascism also. Matt Walsh uses that term to describe himself. It's in his ex-bio. It's in there. That's who they are, the theocratic fascists, but it's actually social Darwinism in that they believe they are entitled to control the entirety of the country, government, business, everything within that, all of it. And they believe they have the God-given right to tell you that trans people shouldn't exist, that trans elders should not be in nursing homes because, according to them, it's immoral and unethical. All you can do is shake your head at this stuff. There is no Christ in any of this stuff that they talk about, but they claim to be that. And they'll continue defending that, and you'll continue letting them do it. Come back Monday, and we'll have some more conversations about all of this before I get real pissed. Bye. Have a